He's divorced her like she was nothing, so she bought his empire. Adrian Lockhart thought Serena Vale would disappear quietly after he ended their marriage contract. He popped champagne in the courtroom, walked out with another woman on his arm, and never looked back. But 3 years later, Serena returned wearing the ring, the most dangerous man, and holding controlling shares in everything Adrian had built from her stolen work. Look at this, guys. When big shot CEO Adrian Lockhart signed those divorce papers, he honestly thought he was cutting dead weight. He figured his quiet little wife, Serena Vale, would just crawl into a hole and cry herself to sleep. Spoiler alert, he was dead wrong. 3 years later, she rolls back into town, wearing a massive rock from the city's most ruthless mob boss, holding the leash to Adrian's entire empire. She didn't come to cry, she came to collect in blood. Stick with me, because today you and I are unpacking a masterclass in vengeance. Tell me where you are watching from in the comments. Anyway, the cork from a $3,000 bottle of champagne blasted off the courtroom ceiling like a bullet, and Adrian did not even blink. The guy literally threw his head back and howled with laughter right there in the courtroom. It was crazy loud for a place where a judge just legally nuked his marriage. He had this 24-year-old blonde draped all over him, giggling into his custom-tailored suit jacket, wearing a dress that had the bailiff staring at his shoes. Meanwhile, all the way across that shiny marble floor, Serena just sat there, hands folded, absolute zero reaction. Her lawyer is buzzing in her ear with apologies, but her face is totally blank, just ice cold. Adrian kept sneaking glances at her, practically begging to see her crack. He wanted the tears, he wanted the screaming match. He needed that final hit of validation to prove he was the undisputed winner here. But he got absolutely nothing. The judge had already been gone for 10 minutes, and 7 years of marriage were wiped out by a few drops of ink. Honestly, Adrian felt like he just dropped a massive weight. He probably never even loved her. To him, Serena was just a stepping stone. She was the genius brain who dragged Locke Enterprises out of the gutter and turned it into a multi-million-dollar beast. But in Adrian's twisted mind, people are just tools, and Serena's warranty had expired. His new girl, whoever she was purred about wanting to leave the creepy courthouse. Adrian flashed this arrogant grin, finally tearing his eyes away from his ex-wife. He bragged about going to celebrate, walking out without even checking if Serena was behind him. As far as this guy was concerned, Serena was a ghost the second that gavel dropped. He strutted out of those heavy oak doors with his new trophy clinging to his arm, while his poor assistant dragged a briefcase full of divorce papers behind them. Looking out at the massive city skyline, Adrian felt like an absolute king ruling his concrete jungle. Back inside, the so-called loser of this breakup finally stood up. Her lawyer reached out to help, treating her like fragile glass, but she just brushed him off. She packed up her coat and designer bag with terrifyingly calm precision. That is the kind of control you only get when you are plotting something massive. Not a single tear dropped from her eyes. The lesson here: never mistake silence for weakness. Trust me, the crying phase ended 3 months ago when he first dropped the divorce bomb. The guy had the nerve to offer his old apartment and a pathetic settlement that would barely pay her grocery bills for a year. And get this, she signed everything. No drama. No throwing expensive vases at his head. No hiring shark lawyers to drain his bank accounts. Adrian patted himself on the back, calling her mature. His rich buddies called her a pushover. But Serena, she called it phase 1 of the master plan. She stepped out of that courthouse into the freezing autumn wind, breathing in the smell of wet asphalt. Her high heels smacked the pavement in this cold, hypnotic rhythm, step by step. She was already mentally tearing down his entire life. She refused to even glance back at that giant marble building. She completely ignored the shiny black luxury car where Adrian and his shiny new toy were busy making out. Instead, she just marched 3 blocks down, stepped right into the dirty, buzzing subway station, and vanished off the map like a ghost. Now, back to our boy, Adrian. This dude did not spare a single brain cell thinking about his ex for 6 straight weeks. He was living the ultimate bachelor fantasy. Eating expensive steaks she always hated, partying until dawn at those loud VIP clubs she used to call childish, and waking up next to random models. He was drunk on his own ego, feeling untouchable. Locke Enterprises was printing money, and he was on top of the food chain. He just closed this insane $50 million deal for an artificial intelligence tech startup, basically cementing himself as a titan in the automation world. The media could not get enough of him. Big magazines were putting his face on their covers, calling him the next big visionary leader. He gave these insanely arrogant interviews from his corner office, acting like he built the whole empire with his bare hands. Not a single reporter asked about Serena or the divorce. She was completely erased from the narrative. But guys, here is where the fun begins. The very first domino tipped over. It was a tiny supplier contract suddenly getting cancelled. That happens, right? Normal business stuff. Except then a second one died. Then a third vanished. His finance chief, Paul, finally slapped the warning signs down on the desk during a quarterly review meeting. The guy looked completely rattled. He tapped his pen on the file and said these deals were supposed to be unbreakable, but everyone's was just jumping ship out of nowhere. Adrian just swatted the air like it was nothing. He told Paul to just throw more cash at them and fix it. But Paul was sweating bullets. He said he already tried, but the partners were talking about finding someone more aligned with their vision. Adrian absolutely lost it, screaming at his finance guy to just do his job and stop crying about it. Paul backed out of the room looking furious, while our boy Adrian just went right back to swiping on his expensive phone. He was too busy texting his new girlfriend about fancy dinner plans to care about his crumbling empire. But here is the life lesson, folks. Ignoring a leak does not stop the boat from sinking. Over the next 30 days, 3 massive deals straight up vaporized into thin air. Greedy investors, who used to beg him to take their money, were suddenly ghosting his calls. Then came the brutal knockout punch. A massive healthcare giant that brought in 15% of his yearly revenue just emailed him a termination notice. No warning, no phone call, just a polite goodbye. Adrian started chugging coffee, sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. He fired innocent analysts in blind rage. The media smelled blood, and headlines started asking if he was washed up. Adrian completely snapped and hurled a business magazine straight across his giant office. He dragged Paul into an emergency meeting, screaming at him to find out who was trying to sabotage the company. Paul looked at him like he was losing his mind, stuttering about how sabotage sounded insane. Adrian basically told him to shut up, reminding the poor guy that he gets paid to fix messes, not have opinions. But Adrian saw the look in Paul's eyes. It was pity mixed with doubt. It was that terrifying look that, hey boss, maybe you are actually the problem here. Adrian refused to accept that. Meanwhile, 3,000 miles across the globe, Serena was chilling in a quiet European cafe by the harbor. She loved the old stone streets, absolutely loved the fact that nobody here knew who she was. Nobody was staring. Nobody was whispering about the pathetic ex-wife. That pure anonymity was the most dangerous weapon she had ever held. She took a slow sip of her dark espresso, flipped open her laptop, and went straight to work. The screen lit up with insane amounts of data, secret contracts, and hostile takeover plans. She read those numbers like a military sniper lining up a shot. Every single spreadsheet was another trap she had set around her ex-husband's neck. Then her burner phone vibrated. An anonymous text confirmed 3 more stolen contracts, crashing Adrian's quarterly numbers by 18%. Serena finally smiled. She texted back to keep bleeding his healthcare sector. She wanted him financially bleeding out by the time the new year hit. She snapped her laptop shut and just relaxed, watching the fancy sailboats glide across the harbor. The crazy orange and red sunset reminded her of that humiliating day in the courtroom. She remembered the exact way the sunlight hit Adrian's insanely smug face right as he popped that stupid champagne bottle. She took a breath and wondered if that clown was still smiling today. Spoiler alert for you guys, Adrian was definitely not smiling. He was pacing a hole into his expensive office carpet like a trapped rat. It was way past midnight. His tie was ripped off. His shirt was a wrinkled mess. He even kicked his new girlfriend out of his penthouse 3 days ago because her voice was annoying him. The math was completely breaking his brain. His finance guy kept warning him that the bleeding was way too surgical to be an accident. This was not a bad economy. This was a targeted assassination of his company. Somebody was pulling the strings, but he had zero clue who. Sure, Adrian had made plenty of enemies on his way to the top, but none of those guys had the brain power or the reach to choke him out like this. So he desperately scrolled through his phone and found Marcus Hale. This guy was a dark web private investigator who charged a fortune to ruin people's lives. Adrian used him years ago to crush a rival CEO. He called the number, and Marcus picked up instantly. Adrian swallowed his pride and said he needed to hunt someone down. The timing was too crazy to ignore. The timeline was just too perfect. The quiet divorce, her disappearing act, and then his entire life falling apart piece by piece. He finally choked out his ex-wife's name to the investigator. Marcus actually paused, sounding shocked that Adrian was accusing his own quiet ex of masterminding a corporate bloodbath. Adrian just yelled at him to find her. He demanded to know every single move she was making, who she was eating with, everything. The investigator promised results. In a week, Adrian slammed the phone down and stared out into the dark, unforgiving city skyline. He pressed his shaking hand against the cold window pane, realizing his control was completely gone. Meanwhile, Serena was busy bumping into the terrifying underground kingpin, Lutzen Drax, on a random Tuesday. Let me tell you guys, Serena was building a literal army of bitter lawyers and former Lock Enterprises staff who wanted pure revenge. She is taking evening walks by the water, just letting the ocean breeze clear her mind. She absolutely wasn't looking for trouble, and she definitely wasn't looking for him. But listen, a guy like Lucian, you do not find him, he finds you. She is walking out of a cafe when a pitch-black car rolls up. The door swings open, and this dangerously smooth voice calls out her real name. Serena completely freezes. Nobody in this town is supposed to know who she is. She turns around, gripping her bag for dear life. Out steps this absolute unit of a man. The lesson here? No matter how carefully you hide your past, your secrets will always catch up to you. This guy is intensely handsome, but totally terrifying, all sharp jawlines and zero blinking. He hits her with a faint European accent, saying she does not know him, but he knows her. Serena is internally panicking, but she keeps her poker face locked in, telling him that is literally the opposite of comforting. He flashes this ice-cold smile and says he is not here to hold her hand, he is here to make a deal. She rejects him instantly before he even pitches it. Lucian just tilts his head, sizing her up like a lion looking at a very interesting gazelle. He sees she is quietly tearing down Adrian Locke and his whole empire, brick by brick, and he respects that hustle. Honestly, the life lesson to remember is that staying completely calm under pressure is your greatest weapon. Serena is absolutely frozen. Her blood runs cold. Lucian steps right into her personal space and drops the truth bomb. He tells her she is good, but playing the lone wolf makes her an easy target, and he can fix that. When she asks who he is, he drops the name Lucian Drax. She has zero clue who that is, but the sheer heavy flex in his voice tells her this dude is a massive heavyweight in the underworld. He flat out says he owns people, resources, and entire opportunities. And more importantly, he absolutely despises her ex-husband Adrian. She wants to tell him to kick rocks, but that unshakable confidence makes her stop and ask what his game plan is. It just goes to show a simple life lesson. Sometimes the exact help we need comes from the most unlikely and dangerous places. Look, the life lesson right here is that taking a calculated risk can open doors you never knew existed, even if stepping out of your comfort zone feels completely terrifying. Lucian flashes that razor-sharp grin again and offers a simple trade. One dinner, one chat. If she hates it, he vanishes like a ghost. She really should have run for the hills, but instead, she agrees. Cut to them at this crazy exclusive underground spot with zero tourists and literally no menus. The chef just feeds you whatever he wants. Lucian starts ordering in absolute perfect Italian, and Serena is sitting there feeling like she just got dropped into a Mafia movie. He skips all the boring small talk and goes straight for the jugular, telling her he knows exactly how Adrian ruined her life. Lucian lays it all out. He knows her trash ex-husband stole her brilliant ideas to build his massive company and basically deleted her from the story. Serena is clenching her jaw, realizing this guy did a deep dive on her past. He leans in close, staring right through her, and says she is no victim. He calls her a patient, top-tier strategist. She drops her fork and demands to know his angle. He wants to help her finish her revenge tour. She tries to act tough, claiming she needs zero help, but he hits her with the harsh reality. She needs money, muscle, and protection because Adrian is already catching on to her schemes. Remember this life lesson. Pride is dangerous, and realizing when you actually need a strong team to survive is the true mark of a brilliant mastermind. Serena's heart is beating out of her chest, but she plays it cool, saying she can handle Adrian. Lucian hits back with an ice-cold reality check. Can she handle his limitless cash and ruthless lawyers? He tells her she is fighting a full-blown war, and wars need huge armies. Her mind goes into overdrive because he is totally right. Adrian's attack dog investigator is already sniffing around her network. She asks the million-dollar question, what is his cut? Lucian just sits back, swirling his expensive wine, and says he simply loves watching arrogant, untouchable men get destroyed. The guy sits perfectly still, almost like a statue, completely devoid of weakness. The life lesson here is simple. Finding an ally with a shared enemy is often the fastest track to absolute victory. Serena finally says she will think about the offer, and Lucian just nods, warning her the clock is ticking fast. Smash cut to 1 week later, and Adrian gets a call from his top investigator, Marcus. He says he found her. Adrian practically drops his phone in shock. Marcus reveals she is hiding in a random European coastal town using her maiden name, keeping a super low profile. But here is the wildest part. She is doing absolutely nothing. No job, no friends, just paying rent and drinking coffee. Marcus says it looks like she is just waiting to strike. Adrian hangs up, completely paranoid. Because a quiet Serena makes zero sense. The life lesson is pretty clear. Silence is often the loudest warning sign that a massive storm is brewing right off the coast. Adrian is trying to convince himself Serena is broke and powerless. He is thinking she is a nobody now. Suddenly, his phone vibrates. It is a terrifying email from his right-hand man, Paul. Another massive investor just bailed out. Exactly the same pattern. Absolutely no reason given. Adrian feels sick to his stomach. He flashes back to the divorce court, remembering how eerily calm and unbothered Serena looked. For the first time ever, the great Adrian is actually scared. He stays up all night in his pitch-black office, staring down at the city lights, completely unable to understand how his empire is crumbling. He reads that same email 17 times in a row. The big life lesson? Never underestimate someone you pushed to the absolute edge because they have nothing left to lose. A strong life lesson for you. Guilty consciences will always create their own perfect prisons of paranoia and constant fear. Investors vanishing without a single word is way too clean to be random bad luck. Adrian cannot get Serena out of his head. He expected her to be completely shattered during the split, but instead, she looked at him like he was already dead to her. In a total panic, he grabs his phone at 3 a.m. to call his investigator. Marcus picks up sounding super sleepy, but Adrian is unhinged. He screams at him to dig deeper, demanding to know every single coffee she bought and every person she breathed near. He slams the phone down. The dude is literally shaking in his expensive suit, trying to flatten his hands on his desk just to hide his terror. Adrian is trying to hype himself up, telling himself Serena might be a genius, but she is definitely not dangerous. Right on cue, his computer pings. Another absolutely frantic message from Paul saying they must speak face to face instantly. Adrian tells him to get to the office in 20 minutes. Paul bursts in after 15, looking like a total wreck. His tie is a mess, his eyes are bloodshot, and he looks like he aged a whole decade. He slams a huge folder onto the desk and says they are in deep trouble. He scatters the papers everywhere, proving these crazy business losses are fully coordinated strikes. Every single failure connects to one source. The life lesson here is simple. Denying a harsh reality will only make the inevitable crash hurt so much worse. Adrian leans over the desk, totally frantic, scanning through endless names and dates. He demands to know what he is even looking at. Paul explains that every single disaster leads straight back to a shady shell company over in Luxembourg. He had to dig through 6 insane layers of corporate shielding just to find the true puppet master behind it all. It is called Veil Strategies. Adrian is super confused because he has never heard of them in his life. Paul explains that is because they basically do not exist. They popped up 4 months ago out of nowhere. But whoever is running it has been ruthlessly stealing their clients and destroying their cash flow with absolute precision. The life lesson is that true power operates in total silence, pulling the strings while others panic. 4 months ago was exactly when the divorce finalized. Adrian is sweating bullets, demanding Paul track down the real owner. But Paul says the phantom behind this is way too good. Every single digital footprint turns into a dead end. Adrian collapses into his chair, trying to blame a random business rival who smelled blood in the water. The problem is, he has betrayed so many people that the suspect list is endless. He orders Paul to get a name, but Paul hesitates, dropping the ultimate bomb. This mysterious company is not just tanking the business, they are hunting Adrian's personal bank accounts. A harsh life lesson to keep in mind: the bridges you burn today will often light the clear path for your absolute worst enemies to track you down tomorrow. Stick with me, guys, because this is where it gets crazy. Paul tells Adrian someone is building a massive case against him, preparing in for an absolute slaughter. Adrian physically stops breathing. He wants to smash his office to pieces, but he forces himself to stay quiet. He tells Paul to find the owner of Veil Strategies at any cost. Once Paul leaves, Adrian is left entirely alone, deeply regretting, underestimating his invisible enemy. Deep down in his soul, he already knows who is coming for him. Meanwhile, cut to Serena chilling in Lucian's mega penthouse office. A hidden fortress she never knew was there. A life lesson here is that our deepest intuitions rarely lie, even when our massive egos completely refuse to accept the terrifying truth. The entire office is walled with massive windows overlooking the harbor, designed entirely to flex power and intimidate anyone who walks in. Lucian is leaning back like an absolute boss, swirling a glass of high-end whiskey, looking like he owns the entire planet. He casually drops the news that her ex-husband put a top investigator on her tail. Serena does not even blink. She just calmly says she knows all about Marcus and dares him to find her. Lucian raises an eyebrow, genuinely surprised she is not freaking out. He stares at her intensely before cracking a rare, genuine smile. He tells her she is either insanely brave or incredibly foolish. The final life lesson today: ultimate confidence is simply knowing your opponent's next move before they even realize they are playing your game. So boom, we are right back in the tension. Lucian asks if she is prepared, and Serena just stares him down, completely unfazed, telling him to check back in 6 months. This icy comeback makes the big boss laugh out loud, a real laugh that feels totally wild coming from a guy like him. He steps over to the window, the light hitting his razor-sharp jawline, and gets real. He warns her that her toxic ex, Adrian, is going to realize she is the mastermind. When he does, he will drop the hammer with lawyers and goons. Lucian asks if she can actually survive a desperate man, because desperate men do crazy, dangerous things. Serena swallows hard, but her voice stays cold as ice. The simple life lesson here: never corner a desperate person, because that is when they get truly dangerous. Listen to what this absolute madman suggests next. He tells her she needs real protection, not just some casual backup. Then, he drops the ultimate plot twist like a grenade. He tells her to marry him. Yes, a fake marriage arc is happening, guys. Serena stares at him, waiting for the joke. When he stays dead serious, she lets out this crazy laugh and calls him insane. But Lucian is all business. He calls it being practical. He walks right up to her and lays out the cold, hard truth. Right now, she is a lone wolf playing a dangerous game against a billionaire. If Adrian wants to crush her, he easily can. But if she is wearing Lucian's ring, game over. It just goes to show a huge life lesson sometimes. Surviving a massive storm means teaming up with an even bigger monster to shield yourself. Lucian hits her with the hardest line of the century, saying nobody touches what is his. Absolute chills. Serena is internally panicking because this is unhinged. She barely knows this kingpin and definitely does not trust him. His only motive seems to be the pure thrill of watching arrogant men crash and burn, but she knows he is spitting facts. She cannot fight her ex's entire empire alone. She looks him in the eye and clarifies that this is pure business, zero romance. Lucian gives this wicked, predatory smile. His payoff? The pure satisfaction of watching her ex realize he got utterly destroyed still by the wife he threw away. Serena stands up, feeling surprisingly steady. The life lesson here is simple. True revenge is not always loud. Sometimes it is just a cold, calculating business deal. She looks out over the harbor, the boats looking like tiny toys. This whole fake marriage idea feels totally reckless, like jumping off a cliff blindfolded. But honestly, she already took a massive leap when she left her toxic marriage. What is one more crazy jump? She tells him she needs time to think. Lucian drops his voice into this dangerously soft tone, reminding her the clock is ticking and Adrian is closing in fast. Right on cue, a massive plot twist drops. 3 days later, a private investigator uncovers a tiny digital breadcrumb. Just one single signature buried deep inside a foreign corporate contract, but it is enough to blow the lid off everything. A quick life lesson for you guys. Every secret leaves a trace, no matter how deeply you try to hide it. Okay, you and I need to appreciate this ultimate karma moment. The investigator calls Adrian at 7 in the morning, sounding totally stressed. He tells the boss he finally tracked down the head of Veil Strategies. Adrian is practically sweating, demanding a name. The guy explains it was hidden under 6 different shell companies, using an alias registered to an apartment in Europe. That apartment belongs to his ex-wife. Yes, guys, he drops the absolute bomb that Serena is the mastermind, ripping his corporate empire to shreds for the last 4 months. Adrian almost drops his phone as his entire reality shatters. He cannot even catch his breath. The ultimate life lesson here: never underestimate the people you mistreat, because they just might come back to completely dismantle your world. Adrian's brain completely short-circuits. The room is spinning like he is trapped in a nightmare. He starts denying it, stuttering that it is impossible, but she does not have that kind of money or power. But the investigator coldly tells him the facts are the facts and hangs up. Adrian is left standing alone in his massive penthouse, totally shell-shocked. The woman he threw out like trash, the wife he thought was just some weak side character, is actually the final boss destroying his life. He loses his mind and throws his phone across the room, smashing it into a million pieces. His hands are shaking and he is absolutely spiraling into a rage. Honestly, the life lesson here is pretty clear. Extreme arrogance will always blind you to the biggest threats sitting right under your own roof. Right in the middle of his meltdown, the penthouse landline rings. Adrian picks it up, trying to hold onto his sanity, and barks into the receiver. It is Gerald Strauss, one of his oldest and biggest billionaire investors. Gerald drops a massive nuke on the call, telling Adrian he is pulling his money out immediately. Adrian's blood turns to ice. He starts panicking, screaming about their contract. But Gerald is ruthless, hitting him with the instability clause because the company is bleeding money. Adrian literally begs him, but Gerald just hits him with the classic line, "It is not personal, just business," and hangs up. Adrian smashes the phone down so hard the plastic shatters. The ultimate life lesson? Loyalty in the corporate world only lasts as long as your profit margins stay green. This guy is having a full-blown panic attack right now. His assistant knocks, interrupting his breakdown, to say his right-hand man, Paul, is at the door with an emergency. Adrian wants to just lock himself in a dark room forever, but he lets him in. Paul walks in looking absolutely destroyed, no tie, shirt messy, like he has not slept in a week. He skips the small talk and delivers the fatal blow. 3 more major investors just bailed, and the board of directors is demanding an emergency meeting for answers. Adrian collapses into his fancy leather chair. His entire stolen empire is burning to the ground, and his ex-wife is the one holding the flamethrower. A simple life lesson for everybody. What you build on a foundation of lies and theft will always eventually collapse. Adrian whispers that she is doing all of this, and Paul is super confused until Adrian drops the name Serena. His quiet ex-wife is the absolute menace behind Veil Strategies. Paul turns completely white, sitting down with shaking hands as the realization hits. Adrian has no idea how she pulled this off, but he swears he is going to find out and absolutely bury her. But guys, wait until you see the contrast. Cut to Serena on a random Thursday. She does not overthink it or stress out. She simply looks at the leaked info, showing Adrian knows her secret, does the mental math, and agrees to marry the Mafia boss. Alone, she is an easy target. With Lucian, she is an absolute fortress. The life lesson here? Sometimes the smartest move you can make is knowing exactly when you need powerful backup. So they actually tie the knot in this super secret, private ceremony. No fancy flowers, 0 romantic vibes, literally just 2 cold strategists signing a legal contract to break the internet. Lucian slides this simple, heavy platinum band onto her finger. Serena looks at it and immediately compares it to the flashy, obnoxious diamond Adrian bought her years ago, the one she instantly pawned after the divorce. But this new ring? This ring feels like a literal weapon in her arsenal. Lucian smirks and calls her Mrs. Drax, but she shuts him down instantly, saying it is just a title, not who she is. Our guy just smiles, totally respecting the boundary. The simple life lesson here is powerful. You define your own identity, not the names or titles that other people attach to you. You and I are sitting at the dinner table with them, and it is the most business-like wedding dinner ever. They casually discuss mob connections, like talking about the weather. Lucian lays out his massive underground network, and Serena is literally downloading every name into her brain. Lucian slices his steak and warns her that Adrian is going to strike back hard now that he knows her identity. He asks if she is truly ready for war. Serena looks him dead in the eye and says she has been ready since the exact day Adrian called her replaceable. Peak cinema, guys. Lucian gives a dangerous smile because things are about to get incredibly messy. The life lesson? Never call someone replaceable, because they will absolutely return to replace you. Meanwhile, Adrian completely loses his mind and flies straight to Europe. No bodyguards, no lawyers, just pure unhinged desperation. He rolls up to her simple waterfront apartment building and literally stands outside waiting like a total creep. Finally, at noon, Serena walks out. She looks completely different now, sharper. Shorter hair, totally upgraded aura. She is fully in her boss era. Adrian feels his chest tighten up with panic and steps right in front of her to block her path, calling her name. But guys, her reaction is absolute gold. She does not flinch, no fear, no shock, 0 emotion. She just stares at him like he is some random guy begging for change. Here is a valuable life lesson. The opposite of love is not hate. It is absolute, stone-cold indifference. He tries to hit her with the classic "we need to talk" line, but she instantly rejects him and tries to walk past. This arrogant fool actually reaches out and grabs her arm. Big mistake. Her voice turns into absolute freezing ice as she orders him not to touch her. He backs off fast, putting his hands up, and drops the bomb that he knows all about Veil Strategies. He literally cries about her destroying his precious company. Serena just lets out this brutally cold laugh. His company? She verbally eviscerates him right on the sidewalk, reminding him that he built that empire using her brilliant ideas and her sleepless nights while he just took all the credit. A massive life lesson right here. If you steal someone's foundation, do not cry when they come to demolish the house. Adrian tries to deny it, but she fires back with facts, completely destroying him. Who built the algorithm that made him famous? Who designed the strategy that tripled his money? Who wrote the pitch for his first 10 million? Adrian just stands there looking dumb because he knows she did absolutely everything. Serena's voice is shaking with pure, raw anger now. She tells him how he erased her existence, slapped his name on her genius, and tossed her aside with a garbage settlement. Then she steps right into his personal space, completely fearless, and delivers the hardest mic drop. She tells him it is fine because now she is taking absolutely everything back. The final life lesson? Karma does not just sting. Sometimes it completely repossesses your entire corporate empire. Look at this absolute madness, guys. We are not just talking about Adrian losing his company or some cash. We are talking about him losing absolutely everything. He tries to pull rank, telling Serena she cannot do this. Her response? Cold as ice. She tells him to watch her, turns on her heel, and walks away like a total boss. Adrian is left completely frozen, hands shaking like crazy. He came out here to intimidate her, but the joke is on him. Seeing the woman he treated like garbage walk away without a backward glance, it finally hits him. He has already lost the war. Here is a simple life lesson: never underestimate the person you stepped on, because they know your weak spots. Meanwhile, Serena does not even go home. She marches straight to Lucian, hiding her shaking hands. That showdown with Adrian rattled Serena way more than she admits. Seeing his face brought all the trauma rushing right back. The humiliation, the boiling anger, those years of being totally invisible. She walks into the office, and Lucian takes one look at her. He already knows. Serena sinks into a chair, legs giving out, and admits she told Adrian the truth. She warns Lucian that Adrian is going to fight back hard, but Lucian is not bothered at all. He walks over, pure Mafia boss energy, and tells her she is not alone anymore. Serena panics, saying Adrian never loses and will play dirty. Lucian just looks right at her and says they will too. Sometimes the best life lesson you can learn is simply knowing when to let someone else watch your back during a massive storm. Is keeping his face calm, but you can see that dark, ruthless energy in his eyes that makes everyone terrified of him. Serena asks what he is plotting, and he drops a massive bomb. It is time to stop playing defense and end this guy for good. He walks her into a secret conference room, and it is absolute insanity. The walls are covered in screens showing documents and photos. It is a literal map of Adrian's entire empire, exposing every single vulnerability. Lucian admits he has been building this trap since the day they met. Adrian thinks he is untouchable, but everyone has a weak spot. Life lesson time, guys. No matter how powerful someone acts, they always have a glass jaw waiting to be shattered. Serena just stares at the glowing screens, her pulse absolutely racing. This is not just petty revenge anymore. This is all-out war. Serena asks for the game plan, and Lucian gives a wicked smile. They are going to take everything Adrian owns, and then take him down. Meanwhile, Adrian strolls into his fancy penthouse to find his right-hand man, Paul, absolutely freaking out. Paul is screaming that the board wants a vote of no confidence. Investors are running, and their stock just tanked another 12%. Adrian coldly pours a drink and casually drops that he went to see Serena. Paul looks like he just saw a ghost. Adrian admits Serena confessed to everything and is coming for his head. The lesson here is simple, folks. True arrogance completely blinds you to the fact that your own karma is already knocking right at the front door. Adrian knows Serena is not stopping until his bank account hits zero. Paul sinks onto the couch in pure panic, asking what Adrian actually did to her. Adrian plays the victim, claiming he just divorced her. Paul absolutely snaps. He screams the brutal truth. Adrian stole her work for 7 years, took credit for her genius, and tossed her like trash. He totally erased her. Adrian gets defensive, demanding to know whose side Paul is on. Paul yells that he just does not want to lose everything because of Adrian's massive mess. Adrian coldly kicks his own right-hand man out of the penthouse, and Paul slams the door behind him. Real talk, if you build your entire empire on lies and toxic betrayal, do not be surprised when your closest allies jump ship the second a storm hits. Adrian is left standing completely alone in his penthouse. He cannot stop thinking about the absolute 0-degree fury in Serena's eyes. He finally realizes she is not bluffing. She is going to wipe him off the map. For the first time, this mastermind has no clue how to save himself. Fast forward 3 weeks, and the final boss move drops. Serena and Lucian launch a coordinated double-tap strike. Lucian's ruthless lawyers hit Adrian with a massive lawsuit for stealing intellectual property. At the exact same time, Serena launches a savage, hostile takeover, scooping up all the cheap stock while the board of directors completely loses their minds. A little piece of wisdom for you. Your past mistakes do not just fade away, they wait in the dark and strike when you are at your absolute weakest. Absolute chaos ensues. Investors run for the exits, and clients are shredding contracts left and right. In just 72 hours, Adrian totally loses control of his empire. He sits in his fancy office, staring blankly at his own termination papers. Relieved of duties, effective immediately. Brutal. His phone is blowing up, but he is too stunned to answer. Finally, he picks up. His assistant is on the line, sounding absolutely terrified, saying someone is here to see him. It is Serena. Adrian's heart basically stops beating in his chest. He tries to tell his assistant to block her, but the door swings wide open before he can even finish the sentence. The life lesson here: you can build your walls as high as you want, but eventually, the consequences of your actions will just walk right through your front door. Serena struts right into the room with massive backup. Lucian Drax is right next to her. This guy is a literal ghost in a designer suit who controls the city's underground and the corporate world. Serena looks at Adrian, and for the very first time, she smiles. Just a cold, confident hello. Adrian is so shocked he cannot even speak. Lucian steps up like an absolute boss and drops a thick folder on the desk, saying they are here to discuss terms. Adrian's voice completely cracks in panic. Serena looks him dead in the eye and tells him it's for his total surrender. He can fight and lose his freedom or sign over his shares and vanish forever. Always remember this universal truth. The people you treat like stepping stones today will eventually become the heavy boulders that crush you tomorrow. Adrian is staring at her, his mind completely blown. This is the woman he used to control, the one he erased from his success story. He whispers that she cannot do this, but Serena hits him with the cold fact that she already has. Lucian flips open the folder, and it is a horror show. All the proof is there, every stolen idea, every email, 7 years of theft, documented perfectly. Lucian slides a pen over and gives him an absolute ultimatum. Sign the papers, or this goes to every news outlet in the country. Adrian is literally shaking, his vision going totally blurry. Looking into Serena's merciless eyes, he finally realizes he created his own Grim Reaper. It is a harsh truth of life. Every toxic seed you plant in someone else's story will eventually grow into a dark forest that traps you completely. Adrian's hand is hovering over the pen. His fingers are twitching, totally refusing to listen to his brain. He knows he just needs to sign it to end the nightmare, but his body is rejecting the defeat like pure poison. Every muscle is locked up in stubborn rebellion. Across the desk, Serena is standing perfectly still, wearing a mask of total satisfaction. Beside her, Lucian is waiting, patient as the Grim Reaper, tracking every single drop of sweat on Adrian's face. Lucian quietly tells him he has exactly 60 seconds. If he does not sign, they walk, and tomorrow morning, every single journalist gets the folder. Adrian's throat completely closes up. When you spend your life backing good people into dark corners, it is a massive shock to the system when you finally run out of room yourself. Adrian stares down at the mountain of documents, page after page of emails and contracts where he literally whited out Serena's name and stamped his own. 7 years of systematically erasing her existence, now forged into a weapon guaranteed to destroy his life. Desperate, he tries to gaslight her one last time, whispering that he made her. Serena instantly cuts him off, her voice slicing through the room like a sharp blade. She snaps back that he stole everything, every presentation, every algorithm, every client relationship. He slapped his name on her brilliance and called himself a prodigy. The craziest part, she admits she let him do it. Sometimes our biggest life lesson comes from realizing we handed over the keys to our own power just because we wanted to believe a smooth liar. Serena looks at him with pure disgust. She reveals she actually believed him when he claimed they were true partners, building an empire together. She lets out a sharp, humorless laugh, calling herself stupid for trusting him, and commands him to sign the papers. Adrian finally breaks. His hand starts moving because he is completely trapped. He scrawls his signature on the first page, then the next. Every stroke of that pen feels like he is carving out a piece of his own soul. He drops the pen, looking entirely hollow inside. Lucian scoops up the documents like a pro, locks them in the folder, and casually congratulates Adrian on becoming officially irrelevant. Let this sink in. Blindly trusting a manipulator can cost you years of your life, but finally, taking your power back makes you totally unstoppable. As they walk out, Adrian's desperate voice cracks through the room. He asks if destroying everything they built was really worth it. Serena pauses right at the door. When she looks back, her eyes are not filled with triumph. They are just cold, absolute zero. She looks at this broken man and drops the hardest truth yet. They did not build anything. She built it all, and he just stole the credit. She tilts her head and confirms that tearing his fake life down was worth every single second. The door clicks shut, sounding exactly like a gunshot. Adrian is left sitting alone in an office he no longer owns, staring out at a city that moved on, while his phone vibrates off the desk with panicked messages. Value your own worth, because if you do not fiercely protect your hard work, someone else will gladly claim your crown. Adrian does not even bother reading his phone. He just sits there, barely breathing. He has lost every single he valued. The absolute worst part, the realization that makes him physically sick, is knowing he 100% deserves this. Meanwhile, Serena does not throw a victory party. She walks out of that building with Lucian, slides into the back of his luxury car, and stares blankly out the window. She won the war. Adrian is finished, and her master plan worked perfectly, but somehow She just feels completely hollow inside. Lucian notices her silence, pointing out that most people would be euphoric after crushing the villain who ruined them. Just tightens her jaw. You and I both know the hardest lesson of revenge. Burning down your past does not automatically rebuild your future. Listen up, because this is where the plot goes completely off the rails. Serena drops the ultimate main character line, telling Lucy she isn't like most people. They roll up to Lucian's headquarters. And guys, this building is pure supervillain energy. Blacked out glass and cold steel that literally swallows the sunlight. They read the elevator to his penthouse in dead silence. Serena has been crashing in his guest suite since their fake marriage, and she really thought she could treat this like a simple business deal. But the walls are closing in fast. Honestly, guys, the life lesson here is simple. You cannot make a deal with the devil and expect to stay clean. The environment always shapes you. Lucian just casually pours a drink and says it is time to talk about their next move. Lucian then points out that Adrian signed over his shares, but still has loyal goons on the corporate board. He wants them out, but Serena is 10 steps ahead. She whips out her tablet and says it is handled, showing a list of vetted replacements. Lucian raises an eyebrow at her insane efficiency. Then the vibe shifts. Serena looks completely drained and asks him straight up, "What do you actually want from me?" Lucian is cold as ice. He says he wants to watch Adrian fall apart. Serena reminds him her ex is already ruined, so what comes next? Lucian stares right into her soul, takes a slow sip of his drink, and says, "Now you rebuild." The life lesson here is huge. Destroying your haters is only step one. The ultimate revenge is building your own empire from the ashes. He tells her to make her stolen company an absolute fortress under her own name. When she asks his plan, Lucian drops a massive bomb. He says he will protect his investments. Then he pauses and adds, "Protect my wife." Boom! You can cut the tension with a knife. The word wife feels bizarre to Serena, like a heavy costume. She only married this boss for pure revenge. But standing in his freezing penthouse, she is suddenly terrified that she just swapped one cage for a deadlier one. It is a harsh life lesson. When you use dangerous people to fix your problems, you usually inherit worse ones. Feeling totally overwhelmed, she tries to run away to bed. But Lucian stops her in her tracks and softly tells her she did well today. He says he hopes she knows it, but Serena just blanks him. She locks herself in her dark suite, wondering why winning feels exactly like losing. Meanwhile, we cut to Adrian, and he is spiraling. For 3 straight days, he is absolutely wrecked. Not a classy buzz, but completely messy, waking up on the floor with zero memory, a dead phone, and the bitter taste of regret. The life lesson here is brutal. Running from your failures with a bottle just makes the hangover worse when reality hits. By day 4, someone is violently hammering on his front door. Adrian tries to ignore it, but the knocking is completely relentless. Looking like an absolute zombie, he finally drags himself off the floor and stumbles to the entrance to see who is crashing his pity party. Adrian opens the door, and it is Paul. But man, Paul looks like he aged 10 years in a week. He takes one look at Adrian and tells him he looks like absolute garbage. Adrian gives a sarcastic thank you, completely exhausted. Paul steps inside, disgusted by the smell of stale booze and defeat. He marches straight to the windows and rips the curtains open. Sunlight blasts the room, and Adrian hisses like a vampire, begging him to stop. But Paul is not having it. He stares Adrian down and says he needs to see what he has turned into. Adrian snaps back that he already knows. You and I both know the life lesson here. You cannot heal in the same dark room where you broke down. Sometimes you need a true friend to force the light in, no matter how much it hurts your eyes. Paul goes off. He tells Adrian to stop throwing a pity party and fight back. Adrian laughs this broken laugh, saying she already took everything. But Paul is a real one. He whips out his phone and drops a massive plot twist. He has been digging into Lucien Drax, and he found the dirt. Adrian's heart starts racing. Paul reveals that Lucien is not just some rich executive. He is running half the criminal underworld in Europe. We are talking massive extortion, dirty money, and way worse. Paul looks right at Adrian and warns him that Serena is in way over her head with this monster. This reveals a very solid life lesson. The truth always leaves a paper trail, and nobody is untouchable if you dig deep enough. Now, the stakes are literally through the roof. Adrian panics. He realizes exposing Lucien means Serena gets caught in the crossfire. Paul is furious, reminding him Serena destroyed his company. But then, Adrian drops a massive truth bomb. He confesses she only took back what was hers. He sinks onto the couch, admitting he stole her work, slapped his name on it, and faked his way to the top. Paul is stunned. Adrian is defending his enemy, but Adrian says he is finally admitting the truth. Paul demands to know if he is just going to let her win. Adrian looks up, his eyes bloodshot but totally focused. The life lesson here is profound. You can never truly move forward until you take accountability for the messes you made. The board is set, and this next move is going to be absolute fire. Adrian looks at him, totally defeated, and drops the heaviest line. She already won, Paul, and maybe she deserved to. Guys, Paul looks like he wants to throw up. He's furious. The Adrian Locke I knew would never roll over. And Adrian just stands up, shaking but serious, and says that Adrian Locke was a total fraud. Paul is so disgusted he just shakes his head, tells him to go ahead and drown in his own pity, and storms out. The door slams so hard the expensive art on the walls literally rattles. Adrian is left standing in this massive, empty penthouse, the very last piece of the fake life he built, just waiting for the final shoe to drop. Real life lesson for you guys right here. Ego might get you to the top of the mountain, but it'll leave you freezing and completely alone once you get there. Okay, now let's jump over to Serena, and boy, does the karma train arrive on time. It's a random Tuesday, and she's sitting at her desk, looking over the financials for her shiny new company. But wait a minute. She spots these weird offshore transactions. On paper, they look fine, but her gut is screaming. She starts digging, pulling file after file, and her stomach absolutely bottoms out. The money is moving in these super sneaky, perfectly timed waves, staying just under the radar of the feds. And the kicker, it is the exact same shady playbook that Veil Strategies used. She realizes her own company is being siphoned from the inside. The absolute, crucial life lesson here. If you cheat the system to win the game, don't be shocked when somebody else uses the exact same cheat codes to rob you blind. Serena is freaking out. She calls Lucien, demands to see him instantly, and 20 minutes later she is slamming those papers on his fancy desk. "Explain this," she yells. Lucien doesn't even blink. Totally ice cold. She points out that these sketchy transactions are dated from way before she even met him. She says, staring at him, heart pounding out of her chest, and this dude just leans back, steeples his fingers like an absolute Mafia boss, and smirks. "I'm impressed. Didn't think you'd catch that." Boom. He was already targeting Adrian long before Serena was even in the picture. He tells her he hates guys like Adrian who steal and call themselves visionaries. The life lesson here, folks, never trust a shark just because it's eating your enemy. Eventually, it's going to turn around and take a bite out of you. Lucian drops the ultimate nuke. He's been tearing Adrian down for a whole year. Serena is hyperventilating like, "Then why did you marry me?" And Lucian hits her with the coldest smile you've ever seen. "Because you made it easier." He literally used her personal revenge arc as a smokescreen. To the world, it looked like a bitter ex taking back her company, hiding his massive criminal takeover. Serena drops into a chair, shaking, realizing she was just a pawn in his mob game. Lucian S. just like, "Hey, we used each other. Don't act like this was true love. You got your revenge. I got my money. Everyone wins. Wild, right? The ultimate life lesson to walk away with today. If a deal seems way too good to be true, you aren't the one making the deal, you're actually the product being sold on the shelf." Let's unpack this insane moment together. Serena finally realizes she is trapped in a gilded cage. Lucian hits her with the coldest reality check, claiming freedom is a total myth, and she just swapped normal chains for boss-level ones. Her legs are shaking as she demands out of this toxic marriage. Lucian just drops a chilling, pitying laugh. He reminds her that her signature is plastered on every single shady contract. If his dark empire burns, she goes right down with the ship. He steps into her space, dropping a heavy truth bomb. She begged for sweet revenge, and he served it up, but the massive receipt has arrived. It brings up a very simple life lesson. When you make dark deals with absolute villains just to get even, you will always end up paying the ultimate price. Serena balls her hands into fists of pure rage. She wants to throw hands, but she knows she is totally cooked. Lucian played her from day one. She thought she was the mastermind, but this boss had her on a string all along. Sounding hollow, she begged for some air. Lucian smugly tells her to breathe, warning her not to pull any foolish stunts since they are partners now. She stumbles out of his office, her mind spinning as the hallway walls start closing in. She barely reaches the elevator before her legs turn to jelly, gasping for breath. She completely ruined Adrian, but just handed her own soul to a true monster. The life lesson here is simple but harsh. If you spend your whole life digging a deep grave for your enemy, you have to be fully prepared to accidentally fall into it yourself. Cut to Adrian getting a midnight call. The guy is wrecked, passed out on the couch with an empty bottle next to him, proving he hit absolute rock bottom. Phone buzzes. He almost ignores it, but that familiar number pops up. He picks up, and Serena's voice hits him like freezing ice water. He shoots straight up, his heart hammering, demanding to know what she wants. She warns him they are both in massive trouble and will get wiped out if they do not team up. Adrian is salty, clenching his jaw, claiming he does not believe a single word. Serena just drops a time and a place, noon at the cafe, and tells him to come alone before hanging up the phone. The life lesson here is huge. Never burn a bridge so incredibly badly that you cannot run back across it when a deadly storm finally arrives at your doorstep. Today, you and I are going to unpack this massive drama because the tea is piping hot. Adrian is staring at his phone like it is a literal ticking time bomb. He is convinced this is a massive trap. Just another twisted mind game from his ex, Serena, and her new Mafia boss husband, Lucien. But here is the thing. Her voice sounded completely raw with pure panic. Adrian pulls an all-nighter and meets her at a packed cafe. She is huddled in the corner, clutching a cold coffee, looking over her shoulder like a hunted animal. He demands answers, and she drops a nuke. Lucien has been destroying Adrian's company since before the divorce. It just goes to show, you never really know who is pulling the strings in the dark until the lights finally come on. Adrian is absolutely sick to his stomach right now. Serena breaks it down for him, crying that Lucien played her like an absolute fiddle. He made her think she was the evil mastermind taking Adrian down, but she was just a shiny little distraction. Lucien had the whole board rigged from day one. Adrian is totally reeling, asking why she is spilling all this top-secret tea. Serena looks him dead in the eye and says Lucien is not stopping here. He swallows companies whole, and now she is legally tied to his criminal empire. She thought she was getting payback, but she just traded a bad situation for a total nightmare. Honestly, revenge is a toxic drink that poisons you first. Adrian just laughs in her face. Help her? She has got to be completely out of her mind. Serena is not playing around anymore. She reveals she has the receipts, actual hard evidence of Lucien's massive money laundering and fraud operations. Enough to lock the Mafia boss away forever. But she is trapped. If she leaks it alone, Lucien will know it was her and wipe her off the map. Adrian is looking at her like she has two heads. The exact same woman who stole his entire life is now begging for his protection. It is hilarious in the darkest way possible. He asks why he should ever trust a snake, and she gives him the raw truth. They both know what it feels like to be broken by someone they loved. Sometimes, the only way to beat a common enemy is to team up with your worst rival. Still, every fiber of his being is screaming at him to turn and run. Despite everything, a tiny part of Adrian remembers the girl Serena used to be, and he actually decides to hear her out. He asks for the game plan, and for the first time in years, she looks at him with real hope instead of pure venom. They spend the next 2 weeks going totally underground, building a massive case. She brings the spicy financial records and shady emails proving Lucien runs a shadow empire. Adrian works his old contacts, whispering to prosecutors, "Stick with me here, because this is absolute lethal territory." If Lucien catches them, they are both ending up in the river. It reminds us that taking a huge risk is often the only way to break a cycle of abuse. Serena even packs her bags and dips from the penthouse just to buy them a little more breathing room. Lucien doesn't even try to stop her from leaving. He is just sitting there, totally amused, like a psycho watching a little mouse run through a maze he built. He drops a chilling warning, telling her the world is super dangerous for lonely women. The threat is loud and clear. So, Serena and Adrian start meeting like literal ghosts in abandoned parking garages and sketchy motels under fake names. The tension between them is thick enough to cut with a chainsaw, but slowly, they start clicking again as a duo. Then, out of nowhere, Adrian just breaks. He apologizes for stealing her work back in the day and making her feel completely invisible. It takes real courage to own up to your past mistakes, especially when the damage is already done. His voice just totally cracks. Adrian admits he is the whole reason she rebounded into the arms of a literal monster like Lucien. Serena's face is completely frozen. She tells him it is way too late for apologies, but he says it anyway. She turns back to her laptop, but trust me, he can see her hands shaking. She insists it doesn't change a thing, and he totally agrees. They go back to working in silence, but you can feel that the ice is finally cracking. Not quite forgiveness, but a mutual understanding that they both got crushed by their own ambition. It shows that shared trauma can bridge the deepest divides. Then everything hits the fan on a random Thursday. Serena rolls up to their hideout and finds Adrian looking like he just saw a ghost, pulling out his phone to show her a text. The text message is pure nightmare fuel. It tells them to stop right now, or everyone they care about is going to end up in a body bag. The number is unlisted, but come on, they know exactly who sent it. Serena but tries to brush it off as a bluff. But she is practically vibrating with fear. Adrian fires back, asking if Lucien ever actually bluffs. If the Mafia boss knows they are teaming up, all their hard-earned evidence might already be totally compromised. Serena panics and says they need to rush the files to the prosecutors immediately. Procrastination in a crisis is a fatal mistake. Suddenly, her phone lights up. It is Lucia. Adrian grabs her wrist, begging her not to answer, but she knows ignoring it is worse. She picks up, and Lucien's voice is terrifyingly calm. Lucien coldly demands that she come home right this second for a little chat, cutting her off and hanging up. The silence in the motel room is absolutely deafening. Adrian is freaking out, telling her it is an obvious trap and she cannot go back to that penthouse. But Serena knows the dark truth. If she runs, Lucien will hunt them both down like dogs. Adrian begs to just dump the evidence on the police right now, but Serena knows it is not bulletproof yet. Rushing a half-baked plan will only get you burned in the end. She makes the ultimate sacrifice play, standing up and telling him she has to face the music. She gives him a strict 2-hour timer. If she is not back, he has to leak everything. Adrian looks at her and sees the fierce boss she always was. Adrian sees that relentless fire in her eyes, the same fire he foolishly tried to extinguish year ago, and quietly promises to finish the job. Serena marches out of that dingy motel, hops in her car, and drives straight into the belly of the beast, that massive glass tower where Lucien is waiting. She knows with 100% certainty that this is a fatal trap. But life teaches us that sometimes you just have to walk straight through the fire to get to the other side. She arrives at the penthouse, and it is completely pitch black. No lights, no music, just creepy shadows everywhere. So she calls out for him, and his voice slithers out from the living room. He is chilling in a leather chair, swirling a glass of scotch, looking like a supervillain. He orders her to sit. You and I both know she is walking on a razor's edge right now. Serena refuses to sit, demanding to know what he wants. Lucien's voice is dangerously soft as he asks why his wife has been sneaking around with her ex. She tries to play dumb, but Lucien slams his glass down and invades her space. He brags that he has spies in the shadows, eyes everywhere she cannot even fathom. Did she really think she could plot a takedown under a Mafia don's nose? Her heart is practically exploding, but she keeps a complete poker face. She lies through her teeth, claiming she was just tying up loose ends. Honestly, keeping your cool under immense pressure is a vital survival skill. Lucien stares right into her soul with a freezing gaze, then unleashes a terrifying smile. He knows she is lying. Lucien decides to play a sick game, offering her one single chance to confess what she handed over to Adrian. She fiercely denies giving him anything, but that was the wrong answer. Before she can even blink, Lucien lunges. The guy moves like an absolute predator. 1 second he is across the room, the next his hand is clamped around her throat, pinning her against the wall. He doesn't squeeze enough to cause injury, just enough to instill pure terror. He whispers in her ear, asking the question one more time. You really cannot negotiate with a monster who holds all the physical power. Her vision gets super blurry as she claws at his grip, swearing she gave him nothing. He finally drops her. He looks down at her coughing on the fancy floor, totally disgusted by her. Lucien coldly pulls out his phone and gives a terrifyingly simple order to send them in. The double doors swing open, and 2 absolute mountains of muscle walk in. These are the kind of dead-eyed goons who break legs for a living. Lucien commands them to drag her to his remote estate and lock her down indefinitely. Serena's blood instantly turns to solid ice. She begs him, but he coldly replies that she made her bed and now she has to lie in it. Every action has a harsh consequence, especially when crossing a crime lord. The massive goons grab her by the arms and yank her off the floor. She thrashes and fights, screaming that she will do anything he wants, but it is useless. Lucien doesn't even blink. He just casually goes back to sipping his scotch, tossing her aside like actual garbage. As the elevator doors slide shut, a sickening realization hits Serena so hard she almost throws up. She literally made the exact same fatal error twice in a row. She trusted the completely wrong man, and it proves that ignoring giant red flags will always lead to disaster. Only this time there is no lawyer to save her. They drive her 2 hours out of the city to a sprawling estate hidden deep in the middle of nowhere. In the daytime, it is a scenic getaway, but tonight it looks like a horror movie set. She is trapped in the back seat, wrists tightly zip-tied, desperately trying to calculate an escape route. The 2 giant muscle heads up front are dead silent. One is driving, while the other casually cleans his nails with a sharp knife catching the passing street lights. Her lifeline is totally severed. Lucien's goons snatched her phone the second they threw her in the car. She sits in the dark, wondering if Adrian even realizes her 2-hour timer ran out. Will he man up and hand that explosive evidence to the district attorney, or will he chicken out? Trusting someone else to finish your battles is the scariest gamble you can make. The car crunches onto a gravel driveway, and a massive, isolated mansion looms out of the pitch-black forest. Let me tell you, this is literally the kind of creepy stronghold where people vanish without a trace. The goons yank her out into the freezing night. Her legs are so numb she stumbles. But the giant goon just grips her arm hard enough to leave deep bruises and aggressively snarls at her to start walking. Serena gets dragged into a flashy mansion hallway filled with insanely expensive art, but then the vibe totally flips. They shove her into a creepy room with stone walls and a single chair bolted right to the floor. The mob muscle slams her into the seat, locking her wrists down with metal cuffs that dig into her skin. The henchman tells her the big boss is coming and locks her inside. Serena is left alone in the terrifying silence, her pulse exploding in her ears. The room smells like nasty mildew and dried blood, making her stomach churn. She desperately yanks at the cuffs and the bolted chair, but absolutely nothing budges. Her breathing goes into total overdrive as the panic fully sets in. The life lesson here is simple. All that glittering wealth on the surface usually just hides a dark, terrifying nightmare on the inside. Pure panic is crawling up her throat like bugs, but she forcefully chokes it down. Freaking out is a total rookie mistake. She desperately needs a plan. The door swings open and in walks Lucien, rocking his designer suit without a hair out of place. This psychopath looks at her like she is a broken toaster he wants to toss out. He locks the door and starts gaslighting her, complaining about how he gave her top-tier protection, money, and the ultimate revenge only to be betrayed. Serena fiercely glares into his cold eyes and calls him out for lying. Lucien smoothly claims he just left out some minor details and reminds her they completely used each other for their own toxic goals. The life lesson here is super simple. Never expect genuine loyalty from a powerful person who clearly views you as nothing more than a totally replaceable tool. Lucien pulls up a chair across from her like a total boss. He claims she got way too greedy, digging into his dark secrets and plotting with her ex to ruin his empire. Serena snaps back that there was never an us to begin with. Lucien just flashes a cold, villainous smile. He reminds her they are legally married, so her messy side quest impact his reputation, and he refuses to let his wife conspire against him. Serena straight up asks if he is going to end her life. Lucian leans in close and whispers that killing her would be a huge waste. Instead, he will firmly put her back in her place. She will smile for the paparazzi and run the company exactly like his personal puppet. The life lesson here is wild. When you decide to play dangerous games with a mob boss, simply walking away is never an option. He straight up tells her to stop pretending she is anything more than a useful tool. Serena is furious, her jaw clenching hard. She bravely asks what happens if she refuses his toxic deal. Lucian does not even blink. He calmly promises that if she disobeys, he will instantly wipe out Adrian, Paul, and every person she has ever cared about. The worst part? She will have to live with that guilt while locked in this terrifying dungeon forever. He casually brushes invisible dust off his suit, tells her the choice is hers, and gives her one single night to make the right decision. The heavy door slams shut, locking her in the pitch black as her heart practically hammers right through her ribs. The life lesson here is crucial. Never let a true villain figure out exactly who you love, because they will undeniably use those people as ultimate leverage. Serena frantically yanks at the cuffs until her wrists are bleeding and her arms are shaking from exhaustion. It is absolutely no use. She is totally trapped, and Adrian has zero clue where she is. Meanwhile, Adrian is losing his mind. He checks his watch for the 15th time, realizing she's been missing for 3 solid hours. He paces his dingy motel room like a trapped animal, clutching his phone. He dialed her number 17 times, but it goes straight to voicemail. She has completely vanished off the grid. Cursing out loud and pulling his hair, he grabs their massive folder of hardcore evidence. They compiled financial records proving Lucian is actually running a massive underground mafia empire. The life lesson here is simple. When you decide to aggressively poke a dangerous sleeping bear, you better make absolutely sure you have a solid escape route planned. Spicy evidence is solid enough to get the feds interested, but not enough to lock Lucian up for good. They desperately need Serena alive to testify and back up the files. Adrian is literally shaking. He swore to run straight to the cops if she went missing. But if he drops this massive bomb right now, Lucian will absolutely eliminate Serena in a heartbeat. Adrian's spent years around ruthless predators, so he knows exactly how this toxic game is played. He realizes he cannot solo this final boss. He needs serious backup. Scrolling his phone, he stops on a ghost from his past. Marcus Hale, the legendary underground investigator who originally tracked Serena down, the guy who unearths the darkest buried secrets. He hits dial. The life lesson here? Knowing exactly when to swallow your pride and call for dangerous backup is the ultimate survival skill. Now guys, you and I know this is a massive risk. Marcus picks up, surprised. He bluntly reminds Adrian he does not work for him anymore, since Adrian literally fired him. But Adrian is desperate and instantly offers triple the rate in cash. Money talks, so Marcus asks what the job is. Adrian drops the bombshell. He needs to rescue someone kidnapped by the terrifying Lucian. The silence gets so heavy that Adrian thinks the call dropped. Finally, Marcus calls him totally insane. Going after a mafia boss is a huge death wish. Adrian's voice breaks as he admits the hostage is Serena, his ex-wife. Marcus is confused, reminding him that he used to utterly hate her. Adrian is spiraling, pressing a sweaty palm to his face, totally conflicted. The life lesson here? Money can buy a lot of favors, but it cannot easily buy raw courage when facing a true monster. Adrian admits he is responsible because they teamed up to expose the mob boss, and Lucien busted them. If Serena gets unalived, the blood is entirely on his hands. Marcus sharpens his tone, demanding to know what kind of radioactive mess Adrian stepped into. Adrian begs him to just find her, promising to explain the law later. Taking a deep breath, Marcus demands every scrap of intel on Lucien, hideouts, goons, properties, all of it. But he needs a full 72 hours. Adrian panics, saying she might not survive that long. Marcus drops the hard truth, warning that rushing in blind is a guaranteed game over for all of them. Defeated, Adrian closes his eyes and agrees to the 3 days. The call ends, and Adrian collapses onto his bed, feeling the crushing weight of the dark evidence folder. The life lesson here: true guilt is absolutely the heaviest baggage you will ever carry. Adrian knows he must keep Lucien totally distracted for 3 whole days. He needs to pull off a massively reckless stunt to drag the boss's attention away from Serena. He violently flips open his laptop and starts plotting. Meanwhile, back in the nightmare dungeon, Serena gets shaken awake. She jerks up, her neck screaming in pain from passing out while cuffed to that horrible chair. The emotionless driver is standing over her like a creep, demanding a meeting with the boss. He unlocks the metal cuffs, and Serena practically face plants into the floor. Her hands are numb and her shoulders are on fire. The goon forcefully hauls her up, half dragging her out of the creepy stone room and up the stairs. The life lesson here: sometimes you literally have to set your own world on fire just to keep someone else safe from the real monsters. Bright morning light blasts through the windows, making her tired eyes completely water. They drag her into a super fancy dining room, and there is Lucien, chilling at the head of a long table. The suck is eating eggs and toast like it is just a normal Tuesday. The sight of the food makes Serena's empty stomach violently twist. Lucien casually points to the chair, demanding she sit. She collapses into the seat, her wobbly legs giving out. The guard looms behind her like a deadly shadow. Lucien slices into his breakfast with surgical precision and calmly asks if she thought about his offer. Serena claps back that it was a straight-up threat. Lucien just smirks, chews his fancy eggs, and demands her final answer. Her throat is literally as dry as sand. The life lesson here: pure evil never takes the day off. It just puts on a fancy tailored suit to enjoy a nice morning breakfast. Every instinct is screaming at her to spit in this villain's face and fight. But she remembers all the innocent people who will get wiped out if she disobeys. Defeated, she quietly agrees to become his puppet. Lucien hits her with a slimy smile, bragging he knew she would see reason. But Serena drops a massive condition. She demands he lets Adrian go free, promising to bury the hardcore evidence. Lucien's creepy smile vanishes. He coldly drops his fork, mocking her for caring about her ex. Serena fires back. She just cares about keeping her word. Lucien leans back like a supervillain and reveals that Adrian just made that deal completely impossible. Serena's blood turns to absolute ice. What on earth did Adrian just do? Lucien pulls out his phone to show her the damage. The life lesson here: in a twisted game with a mob boss, surrendering your life never actually guarantees your loved ones are perfectly safe. Alright guys, picture this exact moment. Adrian literally turns the screen right to her, and the headline is an absolute heart stopper. We are talking full exposure. Tech genius Adrian Lockhart just publicly accused the big boss, Lucien Drax Oz, of a massive criminal conspiracy. The photo shows Adrian outside the courthouse, looking completely wrecked but totally locked in. He just dumped all their secrets: the money laundering, the fraud, the brutal extortion. It is all out there for the world to see, Lucien whispers, in that terrifyingly quiet voice, that Adrian went public 3 hours ago and the district attorney is already swarming. Serena is absolutely gasping for air. This was never part of the plan. Adrian broke the deal, which means Lucien is about to break his. Sometimes in life, the biggest risks you take are the ones that force everyone else to show their true colors. Lucien calmly buttons his tailored jacket. He looks dead in her eyes and declares Adrian is a dead man walking, with absolutely zero she can do about it. He orders his muscle to drag her back to the room and lock her up. But you guys know Serena is not going down without a fight. The second the guard grabs her, she violently rips her arm away and lunges across the table. She snatches a tiny serrated butter knife and goes straight for Lucien's throat. The Don is just too fast, though. He catches her wrist like it is nothing, twists it until the knife drops, and blocks her savage knee strike. Then, boom, he delivers a brutal backhand. Serena hits the cold floor, seeing absolute stars. Quick lesson for you here. Anger is a fantastic motivator, but cold strategy will always beat blind rage. She tastes copper as blood fills her mouth. The guard forcefully hauls her up, and this time she does not even try to fight back. Her body is trashed, but her brain is running 1,000,000 miles an hour. Adrian just forced the ultimate showdown, meaning Lucien is sending his hitters out right now. She is stuck in this room while the only guy who tried to save her is strolling into a total bloodbath. Meanwhile, we cut to Adrian at the courthouse. Flashbulbs are going off everywhere, microphones shoved in his face by every reporter in the city. The drama is just too massive to ignore. A disgraced tech genius is openly taking down a powerful mob boss. Someone in the crowd yells out, asking if he actually has the hard proof to back up these wild claims. Life lesson here. Sometimes being a true friend means walking straight into the fire for someone else. Adrian looks right into the cameras and confirms he handed a massive dossier to the district attorney. We are talking financial logs, sketchy transactions, and witness testimonies, the whole package to take the Don down. When asked why he is acting now, he flat out says Lucien Drax is a deadly threat, and if someone does not stop him, innocent people are going to bleed. A reporter drops a huge bomb asking about his ex-wife marrying Drax. Adrian clenches his jaw, drops a cold no comment, and shoves his way into a waiting getaway car. His driver, Marcus, looks incredibly grim and warns Adrian he just painted a giant target on his own back. Adrian just smirks, saying that is exactly what he is counting on. Marcus tightly grips the wheel and peels out into traffic. You know, sometimes you have to make yourself the ultimate bait to protect the ones you really care about. Marcus is losing his mind, telling Adrian this is absolute insanity. Using yourself as human bait for a mafia boss? Wild. But Adrian calmly explains it is the only way to pull Lucien's ancient, deadly attention away from Serena. He says if Lucien takes him out, Marcus must ensure the district attorney finishes the job. As the city blurs by, Adrian desperately asks if they have a lock on Serena. Marcus, he narrowed it down to 3 remote estates, but needs a little more time. Suddenly, Marcus gets a text message that drains all the color right out of his face. His underground contact just confirmed the absolute worst nightmare. Lucien's hit squads are officially mobilized, and heavily armed vehicles are speeding right into the city. Life lesson. True loyalty is rarely convenient, and real courage means standing your ground when the wolves are let off the leash. Marcus warns him the hitmen are coming directly for him. Less than an hour away, Adrian's heart is racing, but he demands the address for the most likely safe house. Marcus drops the exact coordinates, a solid 40 minutes away in the opposite direction. Adrian immediately tells Marcus to pull over. Marcus is freaking out, saying he will never survive alone. But Adrian drops a massive realization on him. If Lucien is sending his main army into the city, the estate is going to be incredibly vulnerable. It is the perfect tactical blind spot. Adrian looks his driver dead in the eye and tells him they are doing this together, because Marcus is the only guy he actually trusts to help get Serena out. It is true what they say. When everything completely falls apart, you learn very quickly who your true friends really are. Marcus stares at Adrian for a hot second, caught completely between fear and loyalty, before quietly cursing to himself. He straight up tells Adrian this reckless mission is going to get them both killed. Adrian casually replies that it probably will. With a heavy sigh, Marcus violently jerks the steering wheel and flips the car around. He demands a full year of pay if they survive this rescue mission. Not triple pay, a whole year. Adrian agrees without skipping a beat. The drive is insanely tense. The bright city lights fade away into dark, heavy woods as the navigation screen slowly ticks down the miles. Adrian's chest is pounding. He literally has zero plan on how to breach this mob compound. He just knows Serena risked her own life for this. Sometimes, doing the right thing means stepping into the absolute unknown, even when there is zero safety net to catch you. Let us pivot back to Serena, who is currently fighting for her life in a cold stone cell. She is aggressively grinding her wrists against the metal handcuffs until they are slick with her own blood, but those cuffs are not budging at all. She has been trapped in there for hours with zero food or water. She keeps thinking about Adrian's incredibly reckless press conference. It was so brave, but Lucien is going to torture him for it, and she knows she will be forced to watch, unless, of course, she finds a way out right now. She scans the dark room with total desperation. Concrete floors, thick stone walls, and one tiny barred window way up high. There is absolutely nothing she can use as a weapon. That is, until her eyes lock onto the heavy chair she is cuffed to. Life lesson here. When your obvious options vanish, you have to find a way to become your own weapon. She is cuffed to a heavy chair bolted straight into the concrete, but notices rusty stains around the metal. These bolts are ancient. Serena stands up as far as her restraints allow and violently throws her body weight sideways. The chair shifts slightly, but it holds. She refuses to quit, slamming her weight against it over and over. By the fourth hit, the metal gives a nasty groan. The left bolt shifts. Her adrenaline spikes. She keeps throwing herself against the metal, sweat pouring down her face, while her shoulders scream in agony. Finally, with a massive crack like a live gunshot, the bolt snaps. Serena crashes hard to the floor, dragging the chair with her. The right bolt is stuck, but now she has leverage. She plants her feet firmly against the wall and pulls. Hard work pays off, folks. Even when it feels like your arms are tearing right out of their sockets, the second bolt completely snaps. Serena collapses onto the floor, the heavy chair clattering beside her. She is still locked to the thing, but at least she can finally move. She quietly drags the chair over to the solid door and listens closely. She hears faint footsteps upstairs, but nothing immediately outside. The door is deadlocked from the outside with zero chance of picking it. Then she spots the exposed hinges. Just like the floor bolts, they are eaten up by thick rust. Serena aggressively wedges the hard chair leg under the bottom hinge and pushes down with all her remaining strength. The metal groans loudly until the pin pops right out. The top hinge is way worse, totally crusted over. Her hands are violently shaking from pure exhaustion, but she refuses to quit. Listen, sometimes pushing past your absolute physical breaking point is the only way to survive. Agonizing minutes crawl by as sweat drips into her eyes. Finally, that stubborn top pin pops loose. Serena yanks the heavy door toward her. It fights back since the lock is still engaged, but with the hinges busted, the frame has just enough flex. She wedges her bloody fingers into the tight gap and pulls with savage force. The wood bends just enough, and she squeezes right through. She is out of the cell. The hallway is dead quiet. She carefully drags the heavy chair behind her, still shackled to her wrist, desperately searching for a weapon. Suddenly, she freezes in terror. One of Lucien's ruthless cleaners rounds the corner. His eyes go wide, and he instantly reaches to draw his pistol. Serena does not hesitate. She swings that massive chair like a literal baseball bat, catching him in the face with a sickening, brutal crack. Take note, in moments of extreme danger, bold action will always beat panicked reaction. Enforcer staggers backward, blood pouring down his face. Serena gives him zero time to recover. She violently swings the heavy chair again, aiming directly for his hand. Crack! The wood connects perfectly, and his loaded gun clatters across the floor. Serena abandons the chair and desperately dives for the weapon. Just as her fingers wrap around the cold steel, the guard grabs a fistful of her hair and viciously yanks her backward. But Serena is a pure survivor now. She twists her body around, raises the pistol, and pulls the trigger. The gunshot is absolutely deafening in the tight hallway. The guard drops, screaming in agony as he clutches his shattered leg. She bursts through the exit doors into blinding sunlight, dragging that broken chair with her. She immediately spots a sleek car parked near the driveway. The lesson is simple. Never underestimate someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose. Serena sprints for the vehicle, her lungs burning as angry shouts erupt from the main house. Lucien's heavy reinforcements are outside. She refuses to glance over her shoulder. She reaches the car and yanks the handle, but it is fully locked. Without hesitating, she violently smashes the pistol against the glass, shatters the window, and dives inside. No keys! Loud gunshots echo through the air, and the windshield spiderwebs right in front of her face. She ducks down low, her heart pounding, and rips open the steering column. She frantically tries to hotwire the engine, praying those action movies were actually accurate. More bullets completely obliterate the back window. With violently shaking hands, she aggressively sparks two exposed wires together. The massive engine violently coughs to life. Trust me on this. Survival mode will teach you incredible skills you never even knew you possessed, she begs, and boom, the engine roars to life. Serena completely stomps on the gas pedal. The car lurches forward with the tires squealing, and these absolute goons are diving out of the way. She swung onto the driveway, completely blind with adrenaline. And get this, she still has a piece of a chair cuffed to her wrist, violently banging against her leg. Oh. A massive iron gate is locked tight right in front of her, but she slams into it doing 60 miles per hour. The metal screams, the gate crumbles, and she bursts through onto the gravel. She just keeps driving, gripping the wheel so hard. Her knuckles are pure white. Sometimes in life, when your back is against the wall, you just have to smash the barriers in front of you. She has no clue where she is going. Adrian and Marcus roll up to the estate, and it is absolute chaos. The front gate is mangled and smoke is rising from the mansion. Marcus is looking around, wondering what on earth went down. They pull up to the front steps and spot one of the mobsters clutching a bleeding leg, The guy is pale as a ghost and gasps that Serena shot him and stole a car. Adrian honestly does not know whether to laugh out loud or cry his eyes out. He demands to know which way she went, and the goon weakly points down the road. Adrian looks right at Marcus and tells him to go find her. The lesson here is simple, guys. When the people you care about are in danger, you drop everything to secure their safety. Adrian tells Marcus he is going to stay behind and finally handle Lucien himself. Marcus warns Adrian he cannot walk into that lion's den alone, but Adrian says Serena making it out is all that matters. He pulls out his phone and drops some heavy lore, showing Marcus the exact coordinates for a secret safe house Serena set up weeks ago. Adrian tells him to take the evidence to her so she can finish the mission. Marcus begs him not to play the hero, but Adrian just gives a grim smile and says it is way too late for that. Trust me on this one, you should always have a backup plan in life, because things rarely go the way you expect. Adrian walks right into that massive, completely empty marble mansion, his heart pounding in his chest. He calls out for Lucien, letting the boss know he is ready, but the only response he gets is terrifying silence. A voice echoes from upstairs. Lucien tells him to come up and finish this once and for all. Adrian climbs those stairs with his legs shaking. He finds the big boss in an office overlooking the grounds. Lucien admits he totally underestimated Serena, but Adrian tells him to let her go. This beef is strictly between the two of them now. Lucien turns around and the cold boss is suddenly showing pure, unhinged rage. He accuses Adrian of destroying 7 years of hard work and his massive reputation. The life lesson here is that unchecked greed will always blind you to the actual damage you cause. Adrian fires back that Lucien used them both and stole from her, but Lucien just raises his voice and coldly states that Adrian is exactly the same kind of monster he is. Listen up, guys, because this is where everything goes completely off the rails. Adrian looks this mob boss dead in the eyes and says he is going to fix this mess. Lucien just bursts out laughing, but it is this creepy, broken sound that chills you to the bone. He tells Adrian that going public was a massive mistake, basically signing a death warrant for both him and Serena. He brags about having hitmen swarming the streets right now. Adrian totally loses it. He does not even think. He just launches himself across the room and clocks Lucien right in the jaw. But Lucien is a hardened criminal. He shakes it off, brutalizes Adrian with an elbow to the ribs, and smashes his face right into the desk. Moral of the story here: never bring fists to a Mafia boss fight unless you are fully prepared for the heavy blowback. Adrian is literally seeing stars, blood gushing from his nose like a broken faucet. Lucien stands over him, hissing that he should have stayed down, but Adrian refuses to quit. His hand blindly grabs a sharp letter opener off the desk, and he just swings. He actually slices right through Lucien's fancy suit and into his arm. The boss roars in pure anger and drops him. But then Lucien pulls out a literal gun. Adrian dives behind the heavy oak desk just as bullets start ripping the wood to shreds. He is crawling on the floor, heart beating out of his chest, fully believing this is the end. He tells himself it is all worth it if Serena can escape with the evidence. It just goes to show you, sometimes real loyalty means being totally willing to take the fall so the people you care about can survive. Adrian stands up, holding that tiny letter opener like it is going to stop a bullet. Lucien aims right at his chest, ready to end it. But suddenly, the giant window completely shatters. Glass goes flying everywhere as someone crashes through the frame. It is Serena. She hits the ground, rolling, face covered in scratches, with a piece of a wooden chair still handcuffed to her wrist. And she has a gun. Bam, bam. 2 perfect shots right to Lucy's chest. The mob boss drops his weapon, completely shocked, staring at the red stains ruining his shirt. He mutters that she was supposed to be locked away. Serena just looks at him with absolute ice in her eyes and says she never follows the rules. Look, you and I both know the lesson here. Never underestimate someone who has absolutely nothing left to lose. Lucien hits the floor like a sack of bricks. Serena is just standing there, catching her breath, the gun visibly trembling in her grip. Adrien is totally speechless, staring at her like he has seen a ghost. He whispers that he cannot believe she actually came back. Serena snaps back, calling him an idiot and asking if he really thought she would let him die after all the crazy stuff they just survived. She tells him to stop overthinking and just start running before the rest of the Mafia goons show up. Adrien's legs are practically jelly, but they scrambled down the stairs and burst out the front doors. Marcus is already outside, revving the getaway car. They dive into the back seat, and Marcus slams on the gas. Remember this, guys. Real friends do not leave you behind when the absolute worst goes down. Adrien stares at the massive mansion fading in the distance. Knowing the boss is lying dead inside, he desperately wants to believe the nightmare is over. But looking at Serena in the back seat, bleeding, exhausted, and still handcuffed to that broken chair, he realizes the chaos is just getting started. They head to a secret cabin 3 hours north. Serena rented it months ago under a fake name, proving that sometimes being fully paranoid is exactly what keeps you breathing. Marcus drives in total silence, knuckles totally white, checking his mirror every 5 seconds to see if they are being followed. He finally uses a rusty hacksaw to get that bulky chairpiece off Serena's wrist. The life lesson here is simple. Always have a solid backup plan, because things can always get worse before they get better. The car ride is dead silent because anything they say right now would sound completely unhinged. They reach the hidden cabin right as the sun is setting, painting the sky in dark red ash. Marcus cuts the engine, turns around, and drops the harsh truth. With the boss dead, his entire underground network is going to rip the city apart trying to find the killers. He tells them they have to vanish tonight, but Serena straight up refuses to run. Marcus is losing his mind, pointing out she literally shot the guy twice. But Serena pushes through the intense pain in her shoulders and argues the job is not done. She wants to hand over all the secret logs and evidence to the cops to burn the whole empire to the ground. Sometimes, facing your absolute worst fears head-on is the only way to earn your freedom. Serena argues that they should be state witnesses, not people hiding on the run. Marcus is just shaking his head, looking at her like she has entirely lost the plot. He reminds her she wants to testify against the most lethal mobsters in the country, doubting that any protection program will keep them breathing. But Serena fires back that doing nothing is a guaranteed death sentence. Adrien finally chimes in, holding his soaked rag, and fully agrees they must finish the fight. Marcus stares at them like they belong in a ward, but dies still. He grabs a cheap burner phone and tosses it to her. He tells them to set up the meeting, making it crystal clear that if things go wrong, he was never involved. Honestly, it shows that making the right moral choices often means you have to stand completely alone in the dark. Marcus gives them exactly 2 hours to get this sorted before he physically drags them away, stomping off into the dark woods to keep watch. Left alone, Serena just stares at Adrien. The guy looks completely wrecked. His face is entirely swollen, covered in massive bruises, and he looks like he aged a solid decade in a few days. He quietly tells her she did not have to risk her life to save him. She shoots back that she absolutely had to. When he asks why, especially after all the bad history between them, Serena gets super emotional. She admits that he was the very first person to ever come looking for her when she was in real trouble. Adrian just clenches his jaw, entirely unable to find the right words. Sometimes a single act of genuine loyalty can rewrite years of painful and toxic mistakes. Serena punches in the number for the top prosecutor. Cut to 10 at night, and they are sitting in an extremely depressing, windowless room. Surprisingly, Marcus stuck around to back them up. Across from them is the heavy hitter squad. District Attorney Rachel, some feds, and an intense FBI agent who looks like a literal Terminator. Rachel is a sharp-eyed veteran prosecutor who takes zero nonsense. She stares at them, trying to wrap her head around it. She says, "You mean to tell me the most famous, wealthy billionaire in the city was actually a mafia boss, and you just murdered him?" Serena stares right back and coldly corrects her, stating it was pure self-defense. The huge takeaway here is to never let anyone in power twist your actions to fit their own comfortable narrative. Serena doubles down, explaining that the boss was literally seconds away from ending them. Rachel demands to know where the body is, and Serena gives up the exact location of the massive estate. Then comes the mic drop moment. Rachel asks if they actually brought any hard proof. Adrian casually slides a thick folder across the table. This is the holy grail they spent sleepless weeks building. We are talking hidden bank logs, dirty emails, and names exposing years of deep corruption. The FBI agent opens it up, face totally blank, while the lawyers crowd around. You can hear a pin drop in that room. And finally, Rachel looks up and admits it is huge, listing off heavy charges like racketeering and major fraud. Take note, guys. Hard work and solid receipts will always speak far louder than any empty promises. Stick with me, because here is the major catch. Rachel points out the evidence is amazing, but it all leads back to fake shell companies. They desperately need real witnesses to testify in court to flip on this criminal empire. Without missing a beat, Serena volunteers them both. Rachel warns them that the entire mob will be hunting them down for blood, but Serena does not flinch. Rachel just stares, looking at Serena's bruised face and Adrian's busted nose. She asks why they are doing this when they could have just grabbed fake IDs and vanished completely. Serena says that running away just delays the inevitable, and Adrian quietly adds that it is simply the right thing to do. The deep truth in life is that ignoring a massive problem will never actually make it disappear. Rachel almost smiles, which is probably a rare sight. She bluntly warns them that doing the moral thing is about to make their lives an absolute living hell. They both just nod, fully accepting the stakes. Rachel snaps the folder shut and says if the intel is legit, heads are going to roll. The FBI agent stands up and says they are being shipped to a secret lockdown bunker upstate. You can physically see Serena's heart sink. She just escaped one trap, and now she is stepping into another cage with zero control over her life. But she swallows her pride and agrees. This is the massive price tag on true justice. They get shoved out the back door and tossed into a random van with blacked out windows. Remember, genuine sacrifice often means giving up your own total freedom to protect the greater good. Before they leave, Marcus stays behind and gives Adrian a firm handshake. He admits that the two of them are way braver than he ever thought. Adrian just jokes that maybe they are simply stupid. Marcus flashes a rare smile and says that bravery and stupidity are often the exact same thing. The van starts moving, and Serena looks through a tiny crack in the tinted glass, watching the bright city lights blur into dark shadows. She is leaving behind an entire war zone, everything she fought so hard to tear down. Adrian sits next to her, awkwardly staring at his own hands. The silence between them is incredibly heavy, loaded with all the trauma they cannot figure out how to put into words. Finally, Serena breaks the ice and whispers a simple apology. At the end of the day, guys, owning up to your massive mistakes is the first real step to healing. Picture this with me, guys. We are jumping right back into the absolute boiling point of this drama. Adrian looks up at Serena, completely stunned, apologizing for using her the exact same way Lucien did. But Serena is not having a single ounce of it. She shuts him down cold. The guy swallows hard, his pride completely shattered. He admits he spent 7 agonizing years stealing her brilliant work, convincing his own twisted ego that he was the mind, while she was just background support. He erased her identity, and he knows he can never fix it. Serena looks him dead in the eyes and promises that when the press starts digging, she is burning his fake legacy to the ground. She is going to tell everyone exactly whose genius built his entire empire. Adrian agrees, swearing he will make sure her name is the one history remembers. Serena just stares at this dude. This is the man she used to love, the guy she grew to despise. And now she doesn't even know what to call him. He looks totally broken, but for the first time ever, he actually looks like a real human being instead of a walking ego trip. She tells him that this weak apology does not make them even, and it definitely does not make them friends. He takes the hit, muttering that it is at least a start. Cut to their new reality, guys. They are locked up in a protective custody facility that is basically a high-level dungeon. It is sterile, completely isolated, and built to scrub you off the map. They are stuck in separate wings, entirely cut off from the outside world. The days just blur into this endless, mind-numbing loop of debriefings with ruthless prosecutors and grilling sessions with federal agents. They make her break down every dirty detail about Lucien and his Mafia-style operation. Serena goes through those motions like an absolute robot. At night, she just stares at the ceiling, wondering if she will ever feel safe again. She wanted ultimate revenge, and she got it, but the payoff feels completely hollow. 3 agonizing weeks into this nightmare, Agent Rachel Chen bursts onto the scene. She tracks Serena down in the dreary common room, staring out a barred window, and drops an absolute bomb. No small talk at all. She announces that the massive wave of arrests has officially begun. Let us pause and look at this for a second, because the scale of this bust is completely insane. 43 powerful villains connected to the network are going down. Serena's testimony was the ultimate cheat code that ripped the syndicate apart. And get this, they found Lucien's body exactly where she said she left him. The medical examiner backed her up, making her self-defense claim rock solid. Chen sits down and calls her a legend for taking down the biggest crime family around. But Serena is not feeling the hero vibe. Chen hits her with the heavy reality check. The massive trial kicks off in 3 months, and she is the star witness. If she manages to survive the inevitable hit squads, the feds are offering her a totally clean slate. New identities, fresh cities, a total wipe. Serena lets out this brutally bitter laugh. Start over as who? She has played so many fake roles that she has zero clue who the real Serena even is anymore. Chen actually softens up. She tells Serena that maybe figuring out her true identity is the exact quest she needs to conquer next. a life where no powerful boss is pulling her strings. Chen tells her to use this waiting period wisely, and Nav leaves Serena alone to process that heavy truth bomb. Fast forward, and the huge trial is an absolute media circus. Every news outlet on the planet is packing the courtroom. The charges against this underground empire are completely wild. We are talking massive racketeering, crazy money laundering, brutal extortion, and straight-up conspiracy to commit murder. There are 43 mobster-level defendants in that room. Guys who have been filthy rich, powerful, and totally untouchable their whole lives. Until today, Serena steps up to the stand first. No flashy designer gear, just a basic grey suit and zero makeup. She stares right into the souls of the jury and spills everything. She tells them how she married the boss to stay alive, how she found his massive web of crime, and the terrifying night he locked her in a dungeon. The defense lawyers go absolutely rabid. They try to rip her credibility to shreds, branding her a lying opportunist and a crazy scorned woman who ended her husband and faked the evidence. But Serena does not even blink. She has survived literal crime lords, so angry lawyers in fancy suits do not scare her at all. Are you guys seeing this? Because I am blown away. They ask why she married the boss, and she says she was running from one monster who erased her, only to run into the arms of a worse one. The courtroom goes dead silent. Then Adrian takes the stand, a nervous wreck. He confesses to ripping off her genius to build his empire. The prosecution uses him to prove why Serena was so easily manipulated. The defense calls her a calculating mastermind out for revenge. Adrian looks at her with red eyes, but she locks onto him with pure ice. 6 weeks of brutal trials later, the verdict drops. 38 heavy, guilty convictions. But Serena does not feel any epic triumph. She just feels a drowning, bone-deep exhaustion. Agent Chen finds her hiding from the flashing cameras. Chen tells her she won the war, but Serena just shakes her head. She says nobody won this game, they just managed to survive. The feds slide a sweet deal across the table, a brand new name, a new city, and enough cash to vanish forever. She stares at the contract, but in the ultimate boss move, she refuses to sign. She tells the agent she is totally done being erased from her own life. She will roll the dice as herself. The agent warns her it is wildly dangerous, but she knows everything is dangerous now. They cut her loose on a Tuesday. Adrian gets out the exact same day. They stand on the curb together. Two broken people who destroyed each other's lives, yet somehow saved each other in the end, staring into the unknown. Adrian asks the million-dollar question, "What are you going to do now?" Serena stares out. She has no clue, but she wants to build something that actually belongs to her. Then Adrian drops an absolute bombshell. He mentions that his mega corporation is being gutted and sold off by the government. But the core tech, the killer algorithms, and the elite systems legally belong to Serena. He tells her he is handing it all back. Not as some grand favor, but because he is returning what he ruthlessly stole. The entire tech foundation is hers to command. When Serena demands to know why, she does not see that classic toxic CEO ego anymore. For the first time ever, she just sees raw, unfiltered regret staring back at her. "Stick with me here. This is deeply satisfying." He tells Serena to take the tech and build something better than he ever could. Then he hops into a car and vanishes. Serena watches him leave, and something inside her finally unlocks. It is not exactly forgiveness, but it is the peaceful start of letting go. Fast forward 6 months. Serena is standing outside a slick new building she bought using the huge settlement cash. It is smaller than his old fortress, but it is entirely hers. The massive sign out front reads Veil Technologies. She completely rose from the ashes, hired a loyal squad she could trust, and started launching her own work. No more lurking in the shadows to make other bosses insanely rich. Every single line of code now officially carries her own true signature. It is terrifying, but man, is it liberating. Her assistant peeks out the doors and gives the signal. The high-stakes investor meeting kicks off in 10 minutes. Serena gives that new sign one last look of pride and marches inside like a boss. The boardroom is flooded with light. Sitting around the table are 5 serious venture capitalists. These financial sharks have done their homework. They know her crazy survival history, and they are ready to bet millions on her anyway. Serena cracks open her laptop. There is no fake boss standing in front of her to steal the thunder. No toxic partner to leech her glory. It is just her running the entire show. She looks them dead in the eye, her voice completely unshaken, and says, "Good morning. Let me show you exactly what I have built." What about our fallen tech king? His story wraps up completely differently. He did not try to build another empire. Instead, he took whatever cash was left from his shattered company and gave it all away. He funded secret scholarships and dropped anonymous cash on creators who had their work stolen by greedy bosses. He kept his name entirely off the money. Then he moved to a quiet town, getting a simple job teaching business ethics at a local college. The rich irony of that is not lost on him. But his students do not care about his past. They just want survival tips from a guy who survived the flames. He still thinks about Serena sometimes in his quiet apartment. He wonders if her new company exploded into a massive success and truly hopes she finally found some peace. You and I have followed this wild drama from the start, and this final scene drops the ultimate lesson. One night, Adrian's phone rings. It is a reporter from a huge tech magazine, writing a cover story on the absolute rise of Veil Technologies and Serena's legendary comeback. She asks Adrian for a quote about Serena's true role in his old company's success. Adrian's throat tightens up completely. He closes his eyes. This is his final test. This is the exact split second where he could easily twist the narrative, claim they were equal partners, and steal a slice of her glory. But here is the ultimate truth. Sometimes, the best way to prove you have defeated your own toxic demons is to simply step out of the spotlight forever and let the real mastermind take the crown. Look at this, guys. We are starting off with an absolute bombshell today, interested. Instead of playing the victim to save his ruined reputation, the big boss Adrian finally drops the real truth on reporter Jennifer Park. He straight up confesses that Serena Veil was the true mastermind behind his entire corporate empire. All the crazy tech, the algorithms, the money-making strategies, all her. He admits his ego was just too massive to share the spotlight. He was just the shiny nameplate on the door. After he hangs up, sitting alone in his dark, tiny apartment, he actually feels a wave of relief. It just goes to show that sometimes the heaviest burden a person can carry is a fake image. And the only way you can ever breathe again is to finally own up to your biggest mistakes. 3 days later, our girl Serena sees a massive feature in TechWire magazine all about her new company. It covers her whole crazy journey from being completely erased to building an absolute empire. But buried right there in the middle of the article is that quote from Adrian, and it literally makes her stop breathing. She reads his exact words admitting he was just a fraud who took the credit because he was too deeply insecure to stand next to her genius. He confessed to the whole world that she was the real architect of everything his company became. Serena sits there in total shock and reads that same paragraph 3 different times. It is a powerful lesson that the truth always has a funny way of clawing its way up to the surface, no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. She snaps her laptop shut and just stares out the massive window of her office. This is her real office now, the one she built from the ground up, the one that nobody can ever steal from her again. For a second, she genuinely debates picking up the phone. Does she thank him? Does she scream at him? In the end, she chooses to do nothing. She realizes some debts are just way too huge to be paid back with an apology quote in a magazine, but getting that public acknowledgement is a solid step toward closure. It proves you do not need a perfect apology from your toxic past to keep building your bright future. She shakes it off and dives right back into the daily grind. She has a huge product launch coming up next month, major investors to handle, and a loyal team relying on her. Fast forward 2 whole years, and Serena gets an invite to be the main speaker at a massive tech conference back in the same city where this nightmare started. At first, she wants to pass. There is just way too much trauma tied to those streets. But her assistant hypes her up, telling her it is the ultimate flex to show the industry heavyweights that she is absolutely dominating the game now. So she agrees. Cut to the night of the event. She is standing backstage, her heart hammering out of her chest. Through a tiny gap in the heavy curtains, she can see a packed crowd of 2,000 people waiting for her. Facing your fears head-on is totally terrifying. But honestly, that is exactly where the real magic and growth happens. The host finally grabs the mic to bring her out. The host hypes her up, calling her the woman who turned absolute erasure into a massive empire, proving that the truth always gets the final victory. The room erupts into cheers. Serena steps into the blinding lights, grips the podium, and stares out at this endless sea of faces. But then her eyes lock onto a guy in the very back row. It is Adrian. He was definitely not invited, but there he is, looking much older and totally broken down. They stare at each other across the massive room. He gives her one tiny nod, a mix of respect, a silent apology, and a final goodbye. She nods right back at him. It really shows that true maturity is being able to look your biggest enemy in the eye without letting the old bitter anger control your heart anymore. Serena turns back to the crowd. She tells them how, 7 years ago, a powerful man told her she was replaceable, just a background character in his own success story. Her voice rings out clear. She admits she believed his toxic lies back then, and it nearly ruined her. The whole room goes dead silent. Then she drops the absolute hardest truth bomb. She tells them, you cannot be erased unless you hand over the eraser yourself. You cannot be silenced unless you choose to stop speaking. The lesson here is huge. Your personal worth is never dictated by the people trying to hold you down. She pauses, letting that realization soak in. She built herself back up from rock bottom, and not just because she was hungry for payback. Though she admits, the revenge did feel pretty great. The crowd lets out a wave of laughter. She says she clawed her way back to the top because she refused to let some shady corporate villain write the final chapter of her life. She glances Adrian's way one last time. He is sitting there with tears streaming down his face, wrecked by guilt. She looks back at the audience and delivers her final blow. She tells anyone who has ever been robbed or treated like garbage that their work matters, and nobody has the right to steal their shine. The crowd goes feral. We are talking a massive standing ovation, people cheering, some even crying. Standing there, soaking it all in, she feels completely free. The biggest takeaway here? When you finally stop performing for other people's approval, you become truly unstoppable. Stick with me, guys, because this is where the dynamic shifts. After the conference, Serena steps out into the cool city night. Guess who is lurking by her car? Yup, Adrian. She tells him he has zero right to be there. He nods like a broken man, aware she could have security toss him out. But she does not call the guards. They just stand there in this heavy silence. It is crazy looking at them, two titans who nuked each other's lives, somehow still standing in the aftermath. Adrian looks so much smaller now, stripped of his fake corporate armor. It just goes to show that people who try to destroy others usually end up destroying themselves. Finally, he looks up and quietly tells her she gave a really great speech. She just politely says, "Thank you," keeping her guard all the way up. Adrian's hands are shaking as he admits he meant every word in that article. He does not expect forgiveness because his actions were unforgivable. He just needs her to know he finally sees the real her, the genius she always was. He is sorry it took losing his empire to figure that out. Serena is not having this pity party. She claps back, reminding him he did not accidentally lose his life. He willingly threw it in the garbage. They are not friends or partners. They are nothing. But she takes a deep breath and says maybe, down the line, they can just be two people who survived the same brutal war. It is a powerful lesson, guys. Sometimes letting go of the active hatred is the only real way you can ever move forward. He nods, agreeing that is way more grace than he deserves. He turns around to leave, but stops to tell her he is genuinely proud of the empire she built. Then he fades into the dark city crowd. Serena sits in her car, and honestly, there are no crazy tears or screaming. She is just exhausted and ready to go home. True healing does not always look like fireworks. Sometimes it is just being totally tired of fighting. Over the next 3 years, her company, Veil Technologies, absolutely explodes. We are talking a $200 million valuation, dominating the market. And the best part? Serena aggressively hires the underdogs, the people whose ideas got stolen by shady bosses, the voices that were silenced. She builds a totally transparent culture and makes sure every single person gets the public credit they rightfully deserve. You and I both know that climbing to the absolute top can be an incredibly lonely journey. Serena never gets married. Her life is totally packed, super challenging, but completely owned by her alone. Late at night, staring out over the city, she thinks about Lucian, Adrian, and the innocent version of herself she had to sacrifice to win this war. She does not regret tearing down her enemies, but she carries the heavy scars. The ultimate life lesson here is that revenge, even when justified, always comes with a massive hidden tax. It cost her 7 years of her life and her basic trust in humanity. But at the end of the day, she survived the fire. She proved to the entire world that nobody can keep you erased forever. And the hard truth always hits back the hardest. 5 years after losing Lucian, Serena gets a random letter in the mail. No return address, but she instantly recognizes the handwriting. It is Adrian. He tells her he is a teacher now, desperately trying to make sure his students never turn out like the corporate monster he used to be. He admits he teaches his class about Serena's incredible story, using her to show them that real brilliance does not need to backstab to reach the top. It is crazy how life works out, guys. The man who tried to erase her legacy is now making sure the next generations respects her name. He does not expect a reply, but he needed to confess how much she changed his path. Sometimes your absolute biggest victories are the quiet, unseen ripples of positive change you create in the people around you. Adrian explains how he actively shuts it down whenever he sees someone trying to steal ideas. He knows it will never fix the damage he caused, but he is trying. He hopes her company becomes everything she dreamed of, and hopes she never wastes a thought on him. But his final sentence hits the hardest. He tells her she did not just save herself from destruction, she actually saved him too. Serena reads it 3 times. Then she calmly folds it up, places it in a drawer, and locks it away forever. She never writes back, because guys, you do not always need to hand out forgiveness to find your own peace. Some stories do not need a neat little epilogue, and some deep wounds just stay as scars. Sometimes, the only closure you will ever need is just putting one foot in front of the other. We are at the end of the line, guys. 10 years after that trial, a journalist asks Serena the ultimate question. Knowing the pain, the violence, and the years of pure stress, would she choose revenge all over again? Serena looks at her massive empire, the loyal people she lifted up, and the legacy carrying her real name. She looks the reporter dead in the eye and drops absolute bars. She says she did not choose revenge, she chose survival, and survival just happened to look like fighting back. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Not because ruining her enemies felt satisfying, but because she made it out alive. Here is the final lesson today. When the world is actively trying to erase your existence, simply surviving and thriving is the absolute greatest rebellion of all. Serena was robbed blind, thrown in a dungeon, and almost murdered by a Mafia villain, but she broke out of every single cage they put her in. That resilience is everything. Flash forward to the end. The finale does not happen in a bloody shootout. It happens in a quiet cafe by the harbor, the exact spot where she first plotted her comeback. She is sipping espresso, scrolling through her laptop. Her inbox is flooded with emails from big investors who finally see her as a powerhouse, not a ghost. The warm autumn sun hits her face. For the first time, Serena actually feels it. True peace. The ultimate life lesson to take away from this saga. The absolute best revenge you can ever get on the people who tried to break you is simply living a successful, happy life completely without them. Let us jump ahead to the aftermath of this absolute chaos. Serena is sitting quietly in a busy cafe. She is not overflowing with pure happiness or totally free from the deep scars of her brutal past, but she has this incredibly powerful certainty radiating from her. She finally transformed into the fierce, unstoppable person she was always meant to be. And the best part? Nobody can ever take that power away from her. Not Adrian with his reckless hero complex. Not Lucien with his Mafia empire. Absolutely nobody. She casually snaps her laptop shut, finishes her dark coffee, and confidently walks right back out into the city that completely failed to destroy her. Only this time, she is not running away to hide in the shadows. She completely owns the streets now. The ultimate takeaway here? True power is not about dodging the dangerous fire. It is about letting it forge you into absolute steel. One of the important lessons from Serena Vale's story is that no one should allow their work, intelligence, or sacrifice to be erased by someone else. For 7 years, Serena helped Adrian Lockhart build his company. She created strategies, developed ideas, supported major business moves, and gave her energy to an empire that Adrian later claimed as his own. When he divorced her, he acted as if she had been replaceable, as if her value ended the moment he no longer needed her. This is a powerful educational lesson about resignation and self-worth. In real life, many people, especially quiet, loyal, or supportive individuals, may work behind the scenes while others dictate the credit. This can happen in marriages, businesses, families, and creative partnerships. Serena's pain comes not only from divorce, but from being erased. She realizes that silence can sometimes allow injustice to continue. Her response is extreme because the story is dramatic, but the deeper lesson is meaningful. People must learn to document their work, protect their ideas, and speak up when their contributions are ignored. Education should teach students and workers that humility must mean allowing exploitation. Being supportive does not mean becoming invisible. Serena S. journey reminds viewers that intellectual labor matters, emotional labor matters, and loyalty should never be repaid with betrayal. Adrian S. downfalls begins because it builds success on stolen credit. That kind of success is fragile. When the truth returns, everything collapses. The lesson is clear. If you build your life by taking from others, your victory will never be secure. But if you know your own value, even after being dismissed, you can rebuild from a place of strength, strategy, and self-respect.